guys, welcome to my Ocean One channel. We have a new 8K today, and I've read it 3 times, and it pretty much caused me to scratch my head a few times, but I think I have it figured out. But before I get into that, let's do the YouTube disclaimers to keep me out of YouTube jail. None of my content constitutes professional advice. Viewers that follow any advice, content, suggestions, anything to do with this channel, do so at their own risk because you are responsible for your own actions. All right, let's jump right into it. Okay, this 8K was a head scratcher for me. I had to read it a couple times. I was eating, my wife and my daughter was talking. I read it once and I didn't understand it. I read it again. I thought I understood it, and I read it a third time, and I think I understand it now. So I'm going to have to do some reading because I really don't have the capabilities to put the words up there and highlight everything. So what I've done is I copied the whole 8K. I put it on my Chromebook, and I'm only going to read what I feel is truly important, okay? So I'm going to do some reading, and I will provide my thoughts as I go, and then I'll probably do my final thoughts at the very end. So hopefully you enjoy this, and hopefully it makes sense. I'll try to wade through this lawyer language, and then I'll tell you what I think that it means in layman terms as I go through it. Here we go. Just forgive me. I know I got a reflection. I know I'm looking down, but it's just the setup that I have here. So on May the 7th, 2024, the obligors and the investor entered into Amendment Number 1 to the Forbearance Agreement with an effective date of May the 1st, 2024, pursuant to which the investor agreed, subject to the terms set forth in the amended Forbearance Agreement, and among other things, to continue to temporarily forbear from enforcing its right to immediate redemption as demanded in the event of default redemption notice, from the exercising any of its other default-related rights and remedies against the companies and the other obligors, solely with respect to the specified defaults for a period commencing on April the 21st and ending on the earlier of May the 17th, the occurrence of forbearance default as defined in the Forbearance Agreement. The obligors and the investor are also agreed to amend the definition of specified defaults under the Forbearance Agreement to include the acceleration of 2026 notes and certain events of default under the 2025 notes indenture as a result of a bankruptcy event of default under the 2025 notes with respect of Fisker GmbH Austria and of Fisker GB Limited, the specified defaults. Okay, that is a mouthful, and you can probably see why I had to read this several times. So what does that mean to me in regular Joe English? What that means to me in regular Joe English is we have simply extended the deference. Okay, we've just prolonged the game here a little bit longer, and they've changed the notes around where the Austria part of Fisker filed for bankruptcy, and that doesn't affect the note. So basically, that's what's happening there, if I understand that exactly right. Let's continue. In addition, in connection with entry into the amendment, the company agreed to, among other things, provide the investor with a new 3-week budget and cash flow forecast for the company and its subsidiaries in a form and substance acceptable to the investor, the approved budget, and, except for the payment of fees and expenses of professional advisors, agreed to not use, transfer, expend any funds or monies for any purpose other than as set forth in the approved budget, or as expressly agreed to in writing by the investor. Subject to permitted variance as defined in the Forbearance Agreement, the obligors and the investor also agreed that the company will continue to sell vehicles at auction through dealers and direct to consumer sales. Did I read that right? I'm going to read that again. Will continue to sell vehicles at auction and through dealers and direct to consumer sales in accordance with the approved budget. I think I read that right, but I felt like I had missed a part there, so I wanted to read that small part again. Okay, what does that mean to me in plain English? They have another budget that just extends out what they're doing here with sales, so it's pretty simple stuff in my opinion. Okay, let's continue. Item 8.01, other events, Fisker Austria restructuring proceedings on May the 7th, 2024. The company's Austrian subsidiary, Fisker GmbH, Fisker Austria, issued a press release to announce that it had voluntarily filed to open a restructuring proceeding via self-administration under the Austrian Insolvency Code. Sounds like a fancy word for bankruptcy. The proceeding will enable Fisker Austria to continue its operations under court protection, including paying employees and selling vehicles while it pursues a strategic transaction or other sale of assets. The company and its other subsidiaries are not included in the Australian restructuring proceeding and continue to operate in the ordinary course. Now, I caught that, what was it, yesterday or 2 days ago? I caught that, and quite honestly, I didn't know what to make of that, so that clears that up. Now, I almost did a video over that, but I really, honestly, I didn't know how that affected Fisker here in the United States, so I backed off that video. I wasn't sure, and all I would have been saying was, what I'm saying now is that I didn't quite understand how that Fisker entity in Austria affected Fisker in America, and that clears it up. It doesn't affect it, but that, I could have done a video, and that would have been speculation on my part at the time. All right, let's continue with one more part here. We got one more part here that is important, and then I'll sum all of this up with my final thoughts. The company received a letter addressed to the company and the 2026 notes trustee from certain investors purporting to be holders. As such term is defined in the 2026 notes indenture of more than 25% in aggregate principal amount of the 2026 notes. Under the 2026 notes notice, the investor purported to accelerate, effective as of May the 3rd, 2024, 100% of the principal of and accrued and unpaid interest on the 2026 notes as a result of the occurrence and continuation of an event of default under the 2026 notes indenture in connection with the failure of the company to make a required interest payment due on the 2026 notes previously due on March the 15th, and such failure continuing for more than 30 days. Such investors purported to be holders of the 2026 notes on the basis of certified beneficial ownership of the 2026 notes through a broker, custodian, or depository trust company participant. On May the 7th of 2024, the company notified such investors that the 2026 notes notice failed to provide the company with requisite evidence, so not substantial evidence here, under the indenture that such investors held a requisite 2026 notes in their name on the note register as defined by the 2026 notes. Okay, the company further notified the three investors that it will reevaluate a future notice and demand to the extent such investors provide evidence of holding the requisite 2026 notes on the notes register and a written evidence of proxy of the requisite registered holders. Wow, that was a mouthful. So what does that mean in common everyday language? Basically, the 2026 notes said, hey, here we are, and Fisker said, no, you're not. It's just, how would you word this? Lawyer jargon, and Fisker saying you didn't meet the requirements to prove that you are a 25% holder of the notes, or at least that's how I take it anyway. All right, let's go through each of these with my final thoughts. Okay, so what does all of this mean in my final thoughts here? We have another forbearance until May the 17th, so we have another forbearance. I'll save that till the end, what I think that means. Okay, we did another budget. Fisker Austria doesn't affect Fisker USA. They filed for bankruptcy over there. It doesn't affect Fisker USA yet. The 2026 note holder didn't provide adequate evidence to call 100% of the principal and unpaid interest. All right, what does all of this mean to me? It's getting grim, guys. I mean, we're, I think we're knocking on bankruptcy's door about as close as we can possibly get. I personally think if I have read this, of course I've read it correctly. If I understand this correctly, what this would mean to me in a nice and tidy thing is Fisker Austria has already shown what's going to happen to Fisker USA. I think we're just delaying the inevitable, and I think personally this is probably due to the note holder trying to get every nickel that they can out of Fisker, trying to sell every, ocean that they can, everything that they can, to get as much money as they can before they file bankruptcy. And personally, I think it will probably be a Chapter 11. Now, is it over? No. Is it close? Yes. We desperately need a cash infusion, or we need a buyer to come in. I personally don't think a buyer is going to come in this late in the game. Maybe they do, and that would be wonderful. But I think it's probably Chapter 11 for us. I think all of this is just showing us that Chapter 11 is probably the next step for Fisker. Now, I hope that Fisker, assuming that they do go into Chapter 11, I truly hope that they survive. I love the ocean. I have over 9,000 miles on it now. I look forward to doing a 10,000 mile review, and I would truly just really like to see Fisker survive. And, you know, all of us that have oceans could get warranty work, get it serviced, and have peace of mind. You know, and I'd love to see Magna start back up. But for that to happen, we're going to have to get a cash infusion, a big one, or we're going to have to get a buyer that steps in, whether that is prior to Chapter 11 or not, you know, is anyone's guess. But personally, I think that's going to be after Chapter 11 now. All right, guys, I did my best. I did the best that I could with this 8K. I went over everything that I thought was truly important, tried to shorten it down, and I hope you found it helpful. And until next time.